Hi, Tom Schodorf.
Hello, Roy. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you.
All right. We have Tom with us. I'll give a short introduction and then we'll jump to it. Not many times you get the opportunity to sit down with somebody like Tom and learn on value selling. Tom, cut his teeth on IBM for 9 years at the beginning of his career, then moved over to BMC for a 17-year run where he had multiple sales roles, executive roles, had a long tenure in Asia. From BMC, went over to Splunk to become their CRO at 2009. If you haven't heard about Splunk, welcome to Earth. You had the hyper growth going from 30 million to 1 billion revenue, single CRO, mind you, in 5 years. A board member in private and public companies. Now he's a consultant and coach for CROs, CEOs on go-to-market things, and an angel investor. He's an advisor to me personally. I look to you for many, many topics, Tom. He's an investor in Spotlight AI, and we're so happy for it. Thanks for being here, Tom.
Great to be here, Roy. Thank you. Very kind
All right.
introduction.
So maybe we start by just having a broad conversation on what is value selling for you. Every person uses that term slightly differently, and I'd love to hear what it is for you.
Now, for me, value selling is all about business outcomes. I don't think people buy anything unless unless it's gonna help them achieve their goals. So value selling is about connecting the dots between what you have and what they need to get their job done.
Excellent. And so what does it mean when you're matching the value proposition to the need? What does it mean when you look at an enterprise deal versus a small sale deal?
To me, they're almost the same. I mean, a company has goals, enterprise goals that satisfy or presume to satisfy the mission of the company. And if you're doing an enterprise deal, you better be aligning with one of those goals. If it's a department or an individual, they also have goals. And so it's the same theory. They have goals. You gotta address their goals. There's usually something in the way of them achieving those goals immediately, and that's the challenge of their business. That's why they work, or what they're aspiring to go to, and that's where we come in when we're selling. Whether it's the enterprise or whether it's the individual, we're gonna help them to achieve that.
So maybe let me build on that for a second. When you look at an enterprise deal, you have multiple stakeholders. They might be in different departments. They might have different personal objectives or professional objectives. How do you reconcile meeting the goals of all of these people and the strategic objectives of the enterprise? Which is probably a smaller problem in a tiny organization, a bigger problem in a bigger organization. So how do you go about that?
Well, it's kind of like the OKR process, I guess, that a lot of companies have. Although they may not express it this way, the company has a mission and a vision. Underneath that, they have 3 to 5 goals. The goals, in order to be achieved, whether you're a big organization or not, have requirements from various departments or functions in order to advance towards the achievement of those goals. So they're broken down into initiatives, and each area or a department would touch one or more of these initiatives based on the function that they have. And there are challenges that they need to overcome to get there. So we as sellers have to find out or prove how our solution helps to alleviate the pain around the challenges that they have to meet the initiatives that ultimately support the goals of the company.
All right, so creating that line between the personal gain, the professional objective of that team or that person or that team to that department, to the vision of the company, and basically becoming more strategic in the decision of why should I buy what I'm being offered here?
It very much so. And you mentioned personal gain and personal pain, which is something I didn't really touch on with that little comment, but that is very real. People buy for very personal reasons, and they may or may not be aligned with the company's reasons. But if you are able to align yourself with the major goals, the overarching goals of the company, it's going to automatically drag you up in the discussions to higher levels, because what the CFO cares about is, for example, are those big picture items, or the CEO, and the lower levels care about a small component of that as it filters down and out through the organization.
Excellent. Maybe we can take a tour back in time and tell me a little bit about how you've transitioned an organization like Splunk from, I assume, an organization that was still learning how to sell the value proposition, to an organization that can do value selling at scale. And what did that transition look like?
Well, at first we were selling features. I mean, we can help you find a needle in the haystack, and we can do it faster than you can do it on your own. And that's basically feature function kind of stuff. But as the use cases broadened, and as our brand became more well known, we found that we could align those use cases and our solution to broader goals, and that's where the value selling came in. But for quite a few years, we were pretty much selling by speed and small outcomes. Of course, it was small price too. So small price, we solve a quick problem, and everybody's on their way. The value selling came considerably later, probably when we were 100 million in sales, before we really got religion about that. I would highly recommend you start earlier on that, by the way, but probably because of my fault, we did not do that right away. But then when we did, we found extraordinary gains, for sure.
Interesting. And what was the trigger at that point in time in the 100 million to go from the features to the more strategic value selling?
I think the main thing that happened is, prior to that point, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 100 million or 50 million or whatever, but prior to that point, since we were kind of a novel solution, we had to spend a lot of time explaining how the product worked to solve a problem, even a simple problem, because it had not been solved that way before. So we spent a lot of time on that. And then there came an inflection point where the market at large just sort of got it, like all at the same time. Said, oh, we understand now how machine data can help us with this insight. And when that happened, their light bulbs went off, and our light bulbs went off to say, we can solve some really big problems now. And that's where massive amounts of value can be created. Not just that some sysadmin can, or a database administrator can save 15% of their time. It was more about, we can keep our e-commerce site up during Black Friday with 99.99% certainty and not have an outage, that kind of thing, which was extraordinarily valuable.
So in a way, you're tying how informative the buyer was to your ability to sell strategically, or the urgency to sell strategically.
Yes. Now you can probably, if you're really good, you could probably get those discussions going earlier, but there is something that can be said with pacing. Your customer has to be ready to hear it. You find in value selling, kind of getting to that point in general, that there are people in the organization who don't even really understand how their organization works. So sometimes you have to push them along. You have to help them figure out what value that can be achieved by doing something a little bit different.
Interesting. So when you look back, other than timing, was there anything else you would do differently in that transition?
I would have started it earlier.
Yeah.
Would have built it into the sales cycle earlier. We didn't really even talk about it in the early days. Of course, we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants, so to speak. So, things were moving really quickly. But I would have definitely done it earlier and in more stages. So, value can be built and should be built at in every conversation, in every email, in every interaction with the website. It's a continuous thing. And I didn't realize that early on, but it really is.
Interesting. And if you have to go back to like one of the scars you carry with you, or one of the challenges that you had, what would that be?
One scar? Wow. There are so many, but we were in hypergrowth, and we were very fortunate to be into that. And I classify this as once you're at scale, when you're growing at more than say 40% per year, uh, the the biggest challenge to me was hiring and staying ahead of the curve of what talent that you need, because talent really does matter, what talent you need just in time, ramped just in time for when the demand was there. So that was a huge one, and that has broad implications. Not the least of which is you don't just hire sales reps and expect the business to take off. You have to hire pre-sales and services and education and rev ops and value consultants to help in proportion to your sales model.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the more sophisticated the methodology you build on the value sale motion, the more rigorous you want the enablement, and the more, to the point you want the enablement to be. So not everybody comes in and just wigs it. You really want to create a consistent motion there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and when you're in hypergrowth, it's ever changing. So you think you have a 1 year cycle because that's what you're used to, fiscal year or calendar year or whatever. But when you're in hypergrowth, it's more like 6 to 9 months, and that throws everything off. You can just imagine comp plans and sales models and coverage and countries and training and everything gets thrown off. And so you're always trying to stay ahead of that, which is very, very challenging.
Amazing. When you look at today, 2024, the buyer's journey is completely transformed from when you did this in the early days. Why do you think value sales matters today in 2024?
Well, I think it's always been important, but the stakes are maybe a little bit higher now because buyers are much smarter now than they used to be. There's so much more information available to them, and they do their homework ahead of time, just like a consumer would. That consumer mentality has gone into the business, and they know a whole lot before you even get engaged. So that's why it's extremely important. They want to solve real problems, and they don't want you to waste their time because they don't have much of it. So things are moving lightning speed, and you better know that, and be there where they are when they need you, and not have them roll back all the way to the beginning and ask them a bunch of rudimentary questions.
Excellent. And the last maybe question is, where do you see AI and new technologies coming into this value sales domain, and how do you see this progresses?
Well, AI is scary to a lot of people, but if you've been around long enough, there have been every 5 to 7 years, it seems like there's something extremely scary that comes up, technological wise. So I think with AI, it's one of those things, and we should embrace it because it can make everybody's lives much, much easier. Sellers, buyers, humanity. And so to me, it's a tremendous productivity driver. because as a seller, you can do a lot of research and you can target to the persona that you believe that your solution is best suited for. You can do, and people appreciate that. That gets back to the wasted time thing. You can find out a lot about their industry. You can find out their analytics. You can take a first pass, depending on if it's public or even private, on what their pains might be. So you can more target your marketing material and your conversations if and when you're able to have a conversation. If somebody actually picks up the phone or if you meet them in an event, you can get a lot more personal to their pains and their gains and their initiatives. So I think it's extremely powerful. It can also help you with competitive intelligence, with pricing, with everything. It help you be more of a trusted advisor. I would say, buyer beware. You always have to look at this stuff and then validate it. AI has been known to hallucinate and produce information that is just totally bizarre. So you got to be careful about that. But I think AI will really help us to have much, much stronger value-based conversations with all the people that we call on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the things that you touched on is, it allows us to take what we wanted to do at scale in a repeatable way, but customize it in a much more personal way. So that, that tension between the personalization and customization you need in a value sales conversation, but doing it in a repeatable way and at scale, like that's where I think it really make a difference, and that's what I'm hearing as well. Tom, thank you so much. I'm personally very lucky to have you in our journey, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
You're quite welcome, Roy. It was my pleasure. Thanks.